What's up, everybody? Tuesday Night Trash Talk.
Hey.
We are here tonight with Kate, Mega Karen, Matty Mo, and Officer Oak.
Officer Oak.
There he is.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
Man,
So
the myth, the
how's
legend.
everyone hanging in there? Quarantine. Everyone doing all right out there?
Nope. I still have to. I mean, I'm doing fine. I have to work though every day, so
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Same
So do
here.
I.
I still got to go to work. I can't
Yep.
sit at home all day. Got to go to
Yep.
work.
Yeah. Same here. It's, as far as work goes and all that, it's really been no different for me.
Yeah.
I've taken I had a couple days off recently, but I'm gonna have to go back.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm considered an essential job, I guess. So I've just been going to work every day and locking everybody out of my office so they don't get me infected.
Yeah, there you go.
I got laid off, so that's great.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's not
Well, not like laid off. As soon as this is over, I still have my job, but while this is going on, I don't have a job.
Oh man.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I asked everybody today, if you make essential oils, are you an essential employee?
Yeah, you might be.
You might be.
If you sell essential oils on Facebook, are you an essential employee?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I was thinking like the pyramid scheming, those things that people do on Facebook and they like sell shit. And like they have like Facebook parties to sell shit. They must be making a killing right now.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you kidding me?
They're
Who's gonna have
going
the money to
crazy.
spend on it?
Yeah.
It's my whole timeline on Facebook. People selling stupid shit that doesn't work, like seaweed wraps that make you skinny.
Oh God.
Like ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
That's how you beat the virus.
Yeah.
Seaweed wraps.
Yeah. The seaweed wrap your face. That's all.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Yeah. So, first of all, how is the audio, everybody in the comments? Is it all right? I know last couple of shows, it was people saying it was a little low.
We have somebody in the comments wanting to sell Sensi.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Oh, apparently we stole our title from Blind Justice.
Did we?
How can he tell
we
he's
stole-
blind?
Yeah, we stole our thing from a blind guy, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Jesus Christ. Oh my
Well,
God.
here comes that copyright strike.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
All right. Everyone says good. All right. So tonight, Kate, this was kind of Kate's thing. She kind of got going here. But we're going to have a little discussion tonight on whether addiction is a disease or a choice.
Yeah, I like this topic. It's a good one.
And
Yep.
I think since you're the one who picked it, I feel that you should start off. So if I could say you have the floor, I believe you should get first crack at this one.
Yeah. So Kate, do you?
No, I don't want to take first crack at this.
All right. So
First,
let's go over how you want this to go down. So are we doing like a debate style? Like, are we doing timed, like a timed talking? Like, what are we doing here?
No, I think we can have a robust and healthy discussion. You just have to make sure, Mitch, as you are moderating this, that we only talk one at a time, and just keep it tight.
So
buddy.
we had someone else coming on too. So if he's listening, feel free to still come on. And
Brian's redemption. What the hell, man?
Yeah, and we were also, I think, after a while, if we need to, we could always put the link out there to have whoever else wants to come on and talk about this, come on and talk about it.
Yeah, we can put the link out there.
All right. So whoever wants to go first can step up and go first. Don't all jump at once.
Yeah, I was really, I was kind of like on bated breath, waiting for Brian's redemption here. That was really gonna.
That was gonna be
us in here.
Does anyone here think it's a disease, or do we all think the same thing?
See,
You
know what?
I'm gonna go with it's a disease I think it can go both ways, but I'm going to argue that it's a disease.
I think it ends up turning into something like a disease. But to be honest, when it first starts out, it is a 100% choice that you decide to make.
I can agree with that.
100% you elect to try a drug. You elect to pick up a drug. So I'll give you a for instance. So with all, so the biggest drug out right now is heroin. Okay, everybody knows about heroin. For Christ's sake, every single person knows about heroin. Because it's been all over the news, that there is a better chance than not that you.
Hold on, Maddie, real quick. I guess we can bring in a 6-person with the screen going. So,
Hey, Brian.
actually, no, it kicked out my. Yeah. So, all right. So we got Brian in here now too. I just want to let you guys know. But Maddie, you can pick back up where you were. Sorry about that.
So that's fine. So you all know from everybody talking about it that there is a better chance than not that if you try heroin, you are probably going to die. Number one, you're going to die. Number two, you're going to be hooked. You know that. And everybody knows, even if you haven't tried it before, the first time that you do it, you're going to chase that high because you can never get that first high feeling ever again. You can try to chase it as much as you want to, but you're never going to get that same high that you got from the first time that you ever did heroin for the first time. So the fact that you know that it's going to probably kill you and you elect to think that it's still a great idea to pick it up, that is a 100% choice. You can't tell me that that's not a choice that you're electing to make to be able to go ahead and try heroin. Now, is it a disease? It morphs. For me, I think it does morph into a disease. It's not a disease like cancer. It's not a disease like, like other, things that you can get. Like my son's got an immune deficiency. He was born with that. Like you're not born with heroin. You're not born addicted to heroin unless you're a child that's born addicted to heroin. But is it a disease? It's something that can morph into something like a disease, but I don't think it's a disease. So with that, I'll yield my time when if somebody else wants to jump in.
All right, Brian, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys?
What's going on? So Brian, I saw in the comments you got 8 years?
Yeah.
All right,
yep,
that's cool. I got 7 myself, so I can respect that.
Nice.
But yeah, welcome on. Well, we kind of just kicked off. Really, Matt is the only one that just talked. So yeah, I don't know if you guys want to just whoever wants to jump in now. Brian, you can go if you want. If not, if you want to listen in for a minute, kind of catch up, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'll kick it off, man. I'm ready. I guess kind of like my whole train of thought about whether it's an addiction or choice. I guess going back to like me personally in the very, very, very beginning, like it started just basically with pills that I was prescribed for cracked ribs. Like I wasn't choosing to abuse them or anything like that. And then from there, it just kind of evolved and spun out of control beyond belief. And next thing I know, it was more of a financial decision to switch over to heroin. So I can see where in that regard, like it was a choice that I had made. But I think once actual addiction sets in, like any kind of choice goes right out the window. And it's from that point, it's not as simple as, well, just don't use and you don't got a problem, because you're forever going to keep, avoiding withdrawal and not wanting to deal with the repercussions of withdrawal and, putting your job at risk, family at risk. Like logical people don't wake up in the morning and go, yep, that's it. Today's the day that I'm just going to jeopardize my family. I feel like doing that.
Oh, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you 100% there. I absolutely agree. And I mean, there's so many different facets of abusing drugs. Like you got addicted to pills because you had cracked ribs. So, I mean, that is a completely separate, source within itself, that you were prescribed something to quote unquote help you get through a shitty time. You had cracked ribs, they gave you pain medicine, and then unfortunately pills are a lot more expensive than it would be to go pick up, to go pick up some heroin, because heroin's the cheapest drug on the street right now. Like, you can go pick up heroin and go do heroin, and it's a lot cheaper than pills. So, I mean, to that point, I definitely 100% agree with you on. But people who just get up and say, I think it's a good idea that I try heroin today. That's, to me, that's a choice that you make. I mean, to put anything in your body is a choice that you make, but when it comes to the class of drug that you decide to use, I mean, you can even bring it all the way back to alcohol. Alcohol is probably the sneakiest drug that there is out there, because it's socially acceptable to everybody and anybody. There's not one person or not one adult that doesn't, wake up, go to work, and somebody's like, hey, let's go out and get a couple of drinks after work. There's not one bar in this country that doesn't have a happy hour menu.
Right.
Alcohol is also the only drug that you can die from detoxing off of. You can't die from detoxing off of heroin. You could feel like you're going to die. 100%
as well.
Same thing with, I don't think you can die from detoxing off of meth. I think alcohol is the only one that you can die from detoxing off of.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Benzos too.
Yeah, benzos.
Benzos. But in the same aspect, alcohol is so widely used for anything and everything to get people together, to start a conversation. Alcohol has that to quote something, it has that fuck it. You get a couple of beers in you, you have that more relaxed, feeling about you. You can probably go and talk to somebody that you normally wouldn't go up and talk to because you didn't have the sack to do it. Now you have a couple of beers in you, you go and you talk to them. So, I don't know. Jump in, guys.
One thing I got to ask here, though, we call it a disease. Like, what is the purpose of that? I know the answer to this, but why is it that now it is acceptable, if not mandatory almost, to call it a disease?
Well,
Because
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I've been talking too much anyway.
I think it takes away stigma. When you say you feel ashamed when you feel like you're an addict, but when you take away the stigma and you call it a disease, not only will you probably get government funding for treatment for that, if you call it a disease, because it'll be treated like a disease, but you'll also take away the stigma and make it not acceptable to do it, but acceptable to come out about it and seek help.
But at that point in time, it makes it become socially acceptable. That's the difference.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
Now, you couldn't talk about disease before, but now you can talk about disease. And the reason why you can talk about it is because it's socially acceptable. You can't tell me 10 years ago that it was socially acceptable to talk about heroin, because it wasn't. Now look what we have. We have safe injection sites, for fuck's sake. People can go and shoot up and it's okay. The only other safe injection site that you could have is a bar, because you could go inject yourself and get drunk. There's no other. There's no safe snorting sites now, is there? No, you don't see any safe snorting sites.
Well, hold on, let me bring it back though, because you are correct. It's a stigma thing, right? So back in the 1950s with alcoholism, I was in AA for many years, and I will be happy to explain later on why I gave that up. But it was a moral failing. If you were an alcoholic or you were an addict, there was something intrinsically defective about you, right? And it was morally unacceptable. So the disease model comes around and it takes away that stigma, because obviously, they're human beings. Also, I would agree with Officer, there's a financial incentive to this. If it's a disease, then there may be a cure and they can sell that cure to you. But what makes it a disease? Does anyone know the definition of what a disease is when you're going by like a medical journal? Anyone?
Just if we're gonna go like medical purposes, sorry if I just cut somebody off. Like, I would think like classifying it as a disease has to do with like the way it forever alters the chemical components within your brain, and the same way as like cancer does, whatever other diseases.
No.
Isn't a disease something that like changes a function or something in your body for a negative way type thing?
A disease is a biological process that is marked by a pathogen, right? So you have a virus or a pathogen that somehow disrupts your body. Is alcohol or drug a pathogen? No, not really. I would say that, and I mean, I've been through the whole recovery train. I've actually been through numerous models of recovery before I settled on and found the most success with smart recovery, which, by the way, does not necessarily preach absolute abstinence forever. And I will tell you why. That is because of neuroplasticity. So the disease model and alcohol definitely help to kill some of the stigma, but it's sort of a false dichotomy, right? So either you're addicted because it's a moral failing, you made a bad choice and you're a bad person, or we can decide that it's a disease and therefore it absolves some of that personal responsibility, some of that stigma. You can't help it, you're diseased, you need treatment, you need a cure. And those two things are not mutually exclusive. And I think with the disease model, what I take the most issue with is that if you are saying that as an addict you have a disease, you are conceding in some way that there is something defective and less than about you, correct? I was born this way.
I think it also takes away your choice or your personal responsibility for what you're doing. If you say you have a disease,
what's the first step?
Then it's like, I know I was an addict for on and off for like 10 years. And when I was in the midst of it, I would be like, oh, sorry, I have a disease, I can't stop. Like, just kind of like an excuse. And it takes the like the guilt off of me. Like, oh, sorry, I stole your money. Like, I have a disease. Right. Can't help it.
Yeah. Now, the definition that...
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
The definition that Kate gave, I believe, is the definition from Wikipedia, which I don't disagree with. I wish that was the definition that was widely accepted, but it's not, unfortunately. Webster and what's the other one? Oxford, the biggest dictionaries in the world. They define it more towards the narrative that the disease the disease people have.
Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, what's the first step when you go through a 12-step program? What's the first step?
Admitting
that you're powerless.
That you're powerless over that.
You are immediately conceding power and control to an external substance, right? And that is something that I find to be kind of demeaning to people, right? Because you always have a choice and you always have a degree of control, and recovery is a choice. And again, it goes back to this idea that you're diseased, you're somehow defective. And I think that there's a way to look at it that's more realistic, that doesn't necessarily condemn you to this lifelong disease, and doesn't say that you're a terrible person with terrible moral, failings who makes nothing but terrible decisions. You pick up a substance because it's a reward-based system. It feels good, right? And people do that for a myriad of reasons. And I like Dr. Mark Lewis. He's somebody who I read a lot of, and he is a neuropsychologist who was actually addicted to heroin in his 20s, and he does not believe in the disease model at all. He gets a lot of slack from the medical community because he doesn't. But he talks about isolation and social stressors and things that drive people to kind of short path their brains and hit that reward system, right? And it is absolutely perfectly natural for every human being on this planet to want to activate that reward system. We do it in a million different ways. We have sex, we gamble, we do drugs, we interact with our children, we fall in love, we go to concerts, we listen to music, we watch TV. These are all ways that we activate the reward system in your brain. It is a 100% natural, normal, and human thing to do. The issue with it is that the more that you take drugs or alcohol to kind of short track that reward system to your brain, you're building these neural paths into your brain that tell your brain, this is what I need to do to feel good. So you have created something to which you are conceding some choice and some control, because your brain is going to continue to go back to do the easiest thing. It's going to crave that. That doesn't mean it's a disease, though. It doesn't mean that you're any different than the rest of the world, that you're diseased, that you're defective, that you're in some way abnormal. You are perfectly normal in wanting to hit your reward system. It's just the way that you're doing it is maladaptive, if that makes sense.
It does, but based on the definition that they have out for a disease, that would define a disease.
How? I mean, how though? There are.
You said how? I'm sorry.
It's a result of deep learning. It's the same thing as trauma. Trauma has a similar effect to your brain, or any sort of behavior that you repeat over and over again. It's deep learning in the brain.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's. I think it's a choice at first, but when you can't make a choice to stop without having some sort of something that's convincing you on the outside to stop, like the 12-step program or Suboxone or something like that. But I mean, if you're on Suboxone, I think you're still using narcotics.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with Suboxone. It's the same thing with methadone. I mean, those are just basically legal heroin, for the lack of a better term. I mean, if you really take a look at it, especially methadone.
Mm-hmm.
Methadone is just the government's version of heroin. That's all it is. And it's just to keep the pocket of the pharmaceutical companies, pockets fat, because of the fact that that's basically what they're giving you. It's basically synthetic heroin that they're giving you. It's just something to basically give you that high for that day or that time to basically get you over your wanting of that substance. I mean, can you take yourself off of methadone? Can you wean yourself down to be able to be off of it completely? Absolutely. But it takes a long time to be able to get there. And who's getting rich at that point in time? Somebody else is getting rich on your dime because of a shitty thing that you decided to go ahead and do. So there's such a fine line between. Yeah, and I don't know where it's coming from. It might be coming from me. I don't know. Let me mute my mic and turn it back on.
Is it echoing for people that are watching in the comments? Because I think sometimes you guys can hear yourselves talking through this program, but it's not actually doing that through. All right, you said they're saying you're good now, so whatever it was.
No, I can't really say anything terribly negative about Suboxone or methadone. I don't know. I've known people who are on it. I think if you're not going out and shooting dope or robbing your mother to get a fix, then you're doing something more positive. I don't think it's a long-term solution, in that there's something missing there in the cognitive behavioral part of addiction. And that's, I mean, like I said, I finally settled on recovery in 2016. I had been 5 years abstinent from alcohol through a miserable person. I was just absolutely miserable. So I went through like the CBT part of it, and essentially it is replacing these compulsive behaviors with behaviors that are more fulfilling, sustainable, and healthy, right? Because there's a reason why you use or you drink was social isolation, a lot of it, I think, and trauma, and they were unresolved issues. So it really didn't change a lot for me whether or not I was drinking. Some of the more like catastrophic stuff alleviated when I stopped drinking, but I still wasn't like well-rounded or like healthy, right? The absolute like patterns that brought me there in the first place.
Kate, you got an echo chamber going on over there.
Kate, your Obama phone is hurting.
Yeah.
I'm on my laptop. God.
It sounds like you're on a phone call that's not going very well. But anyway, all right. So, Kate, do you have anything else? Or are you?
No, I'm muting my mic to kill the echo.
All right, Brian. Do you have anything to say, or?
In regards to the whole Suboxone, methadone thing, I think it's overall beneficial in some ways because it allows people to get out of the day-to-day pattern of going out, finding drug money, getting a hold of their dealer, just going through the whole dope chase process bullshit. It allows them to kind of transition back into society in a normal kind of way where they feel okay. And I don't think it should ever be prescribed nearly as long as it is. There's people prescribed 20 years, 15 years, like that's completely unnecessary. But to go through the detox process and, maybe a month or so beyond that, just to get used to a normal day-to-day kind of activity in life, okay. But it's definitely not the answer in any of this.
I agree with that. But I think what you should be doing when you're on Suboxone is dealing with your problems that you have that brought you to drugs in the first place. You know, going to counseling and stuff like that. So that way, when you do stop your Suboxone, then you can, you know, be clean. I think to detox from Suboxone, I think it takes like 3 times longer than whatever you were on before.
Yeah, the detox process from Suboxone, from anyone I've ever talked to that's went through it, it's a lengthy process.
Now, I don't know for sure, but is it the same thing as methadone? Does it take just as long as methadone does, or does anybody
I
know?
don't know how
Methadone
works.
definitely takes longer.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and that's another reason why it's the pharmaceutical companies. It's, you know what I mean? Like, to be honest with you, the only person you can get clean for is yourself. Yeah, somebody can tell you, and somebody can tell you, you should get done doing this. If you don't do this, I'm going to walk out of your life, and that's fine. And I mean, there's been people who have, there's been thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people who have been addicted to drugs, and people have told them, I'm going to walk out of your life. But the only person you can get clean for is yourself. So it's all about free will.
I can agree with that as well. I mean, if you look at Vietnam, a lot of those soldiers were addicted to what was it they used in Vietnam? Was it heroin? A lot of those soldiers were addicted to heroin. I think 95% of them recovered on their own without, a program or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were only addicted because that's what they were using out there to, deal with life. Because it wasn't so great out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, any foreign substance that you put in your body for one reason or another is to basically deal with life in one form or another. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's smoking cigarettes, whether it's eating chocolate, whether it's drinking soda, whether it's doing, smoking pot, whether it's, benzos, whether it's, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything, that feels good. I mean, look at people who cut themselves. People who cut themselves do it to feel better about themselves. They use one pain to get away from the other pain. So, I mean, it's anything. You can use anything. Anything can be conceived a drug. Now, how addictive it is based upon the type of drug it is and the type of people that, and the type of person that you are. I never thought that I would, not that I had a huge alcohol problem, but I was getting a drinking problem. Alcohol is probably one of the most sneakiest drugs that there are out there. You don't hear of anybody who says, oh yeah, I picked up one beer and I immediately became addicted to alcohol. Not one person says that. Alcohol is a sneaky drug. I consider alcohol to be kind of like getting into a gang. Alcohol makes you feel like you have a family. It makes you feel good about yourself. It's kind of like being a single kid or being a latchkey kid and not having a parent home when you get home, or growing up in a broken home. Your parents aren't there to teach you right from wrong. Your parents aren't there to be there for you when you need them most, when you have all the kids that are in your neighborhood that you join a gang. The gang makes you feel good. The gang makes you feel that you're part of something, that you're part of a family. That's what alcohol does. Alcohol makes you feel that that you're part of something, that that's what you drink, and you're around other like-minded people when it comes to drinking, and you feel good about it, and you have good laughs, and you feel like shit the next morning. But it's something that's that's a behavior that most people can relate to. Everybody can relate to going out and having a drink. Every single person can relate to doing that. Is it the best thing to do? No. Can some people do it? Lots of people can do it. Lots of people can do it and not get addicted to it. There are some people who, are unfortunately that get addicted to it and that have a hard time, getting off of it. But everybody detoxes in their own way. So is it, like I said, is it a disease for some people now? They classify it as a disease. Was it classified as a disease, even 10 years ago? No, it wasn't.
And I think that just really
was.
Yeah, I mean,
alcohol
alcoholism
definitely was, but
right. because it was that this idea of the stigma, and it was a lot easier to break down the stigma of alcoholism, and that's why I've been around long enough that people say, oh, I'm not a drug addict, I was just an alcoholic, which is kind of ridiculous because the ends are all the same, right?
Yep.
Or you'll hear people, well, I was a heroin addict but I never touched a needle. Like that makes any difference whatsoever, because again, the ends are all the same.
Well, look at Bill Clinton. He smoked pot and he never inhaled.
Right. Yeah, but I think the disease model is service just overall, because it does take away a certain amount of empowerment. And it definitely kind of diffuses personal responsibility, but it also does perpetuate this idea that there is in some way something intrinsically wrong with you when you're doing something that is not atypical. And there are plenty of people that are able to recreationally use drugs or drink and never have a problem. There are people that do develop a problem. There are people that develop a problem for a period of their life and then spontaneously are able to, revert back to a, healthy use, whatever that looks like, harm reduction. So, I mean, you don't see that with your run-of-the-mill diseases. If you get the flu, there's one cure, well, not cure, but how long you're going to be under the weather. You pretty much know how your body is going to react. There's prescribed ways to fix that, and that's it. There is absolutely not one prescribed way to be able to overcome addiction. It's different for everyone. And it's something that I think we like to compartmentalize and say, well, you need to do this, and you line up to a rehab center and listen to your doctor and go to an AA meeting. That does not work for everybody. It just doesn't.
I was going to ask your opinion too, kind of like this comment on the screen. Do you think there's a genetic component? Because people had always told me that it was genetic. Like my father was an addict, so I was more likely to become an addict.
Yeah, it's kind of just like the same thing.
And that's kind of like an excuse, like a disease, I would say.
But it is.
They haven't been able to find. There's no addiction gene.
Also, is it like nature or nurture? Like, is it just because it was a hectic childhood, or is it actually genetic?
Well, I mean, the consensus seems to be there's an environmental factor. There are external factors, in your current circumstances. Certainly, some of it's self-perpetuating as you get deeper into the habit. There are certain behavioral traits or markers that can be genetic that may predispose you if you are predisposed to things like anxiety, if you have low impulse control, which are all to some extent genetic, then that can predispose you to addiction. But no, I mean, don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. They can't find an addiction gene. It's too complex. It doesn't exist.
Right. And it also depends upon you also as a person. Like,
right.
Are you the person who likes to, self-gratify? Are you the type of person who just wants to fit in? Are you the type of person who wants to stand out in the crowd? Like, personality, I feel has a lot to do with it as well. So do you want to feel cool? Do you want to be just like everybody else? So, there's a lot of that too.
So okay, how come like this comment here, addiction definitely runs in my family. That's something that you do see a lot, is that addiction does run in families. What would be the reason for that?
I would think that probably
it's.
So I personally think it's more kind of the environment you grow up in. Like, say, me and my brother per se, I was older and I saw a lot more than him. So I ended up with a problem to try to hide, whereas he was a perfectly fine kid. You know what I mean? And it took me a long time to figure it out and get out of it, whereas he just lived a normal life because he was too young to kind of see what was going on where I wasn't. So I kind of think it's more of an environmental thing, maybe. Just like an escape type thing, I guess I would call it. I don't know.
It kind of reinforces this theory that addiction is the product of deep learning, right? So as you grow up in an environment where these behaviors are are prevalent, and you see the people around you, because I mean, we know at this point little children are sponges. They watch everything you do, good and bad, and that becomes kind of their framework for how they view the world. So if you grow up in a family where there's addiction and this is how people cope with their problems, then you're subconsciously learning from a pretty early age that that's how you deal with the problems. And then of course, if you're in a environment where addiction is left unchecked, there comes a lot of social isolation, stress, alienation, things that tend to trigger and perpetuate these habits anyway. And again, like, you know, there has been a lot of compelling research to suggest that there are certain you know, preborn traits that predispose you to addictive behaviors like low impulse control and you know, anxiety and things of that nature that tend to, you know, you're almost self-medicating in a way.
What do you guys think about so I've always heard this growing up in Florida, and I don't know if this is true or not, but
Well,
I mean,
Florida's not
I've
like
always,
the rest of us, so
well, I've always heard this is
I missed that segment.
Indians seem to have like a bad you know, a lot of them are alcoholics is what I've always heard, because they were never exposed to alcohol prior to the Americans coming to the US, and
that's because they were all smoking peyote.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying is it was passed down from generation to generation. Do you think that would be like an addiction gene? Could you collaborate the two, or do you think it would be just a coincidence, or what do you guys think?
Look, there's no.
They've never found one.
There's no listen. There's no addictive gene. Just like there's no gay gene. Just like there's no, you know, fat gene. Like you're not you don't have genes in you that show what specifically you are. Like it's a lot of it comes from learned behavior. Like Kate said, like it depends upon the you know, the lifestyle that you grew up in. You know, like all boys when they grow up, what do they want to be like? They want to be like their dad. If you grow up in a house and all you've ever known is your dad to drink, what are you going to want to do when you grow up? You're going to want to drink unless there's been some sort of negative action or reaction to what your father has done to you. Like if your dad beat the shit out of you if you were a kid and that's all he did was drink, you know, and that's all you remember is your dad either beating on you, beating on your mom, or doing whatever, you might not drink. But then again, you might, to be able to stop, not want to relive what happened in your childhood because you had such a shitty childhood. So there's a 50-50, you know, there's a 50-50 chance that you might. So it's all in, you know, it's all in who you are and how, in, you know, and what side of the coin you come out on the other side when you become an adult and you're able to go ahead and drink. How are you going to react to what's happened in your life? Do you want to be a better person than what your father was or your mother was, or do you want to be like that person? So there's a lot that goes into, there's a lot that plays into that.
So this is way above my understanding, but two genes of alcohol metabolism, ADH1B and ALDH2, that have the strongest known effects for risk of alcoholism. I don't know if that means anything to you or not, Kate.
Yeah, it's a correlation. It's not a causation. They haven't been able to find it. And I mean, simply, I think part of it is just that human nature is we tend to want to feel like we're in control of things that or otherwise kind of escape us or feel inexplicable. So if this is a problem and it becomes society's problem, then we want to be able to identify and fix it. And especially in today's society, a lot of that has to go with, you know, like the medical community. We trust doctors, we trust medication, we trust pharmaceutical companies for the most part. So, I mean, I think that it becomes easier to say like there is a medical cause to this, therefore there is a medical solution, but you can't go through CBT to cure yourself of cancer. You just can't. You know what I mean? Like the cure or the treatment to addiction always tends to lie in cognitive behavioral answers.
Yeah. Sound guy just chirped in here. He says research has shown that you're 33% more likely to become an alcoholic if one parent is, and 400% chance if both parents are. Sound guy. Sound guy with the facts.
Right?
Or the stats. All right, so I found this interesting earlier. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me get this comment out of the way and get that out of the way. All right, so we did a poll earlier, but we got about a little over 100 people, 108 votes, just saying what we were doing tonight and asking if addiction is a disease or a choice. And we had 50% of people say addiction is a disease, 33% said it's a choice, and other which I put in there. So basically, if you think it's a little bit of both, if you think it's something else or whatever, then you would choose that. And that was 17%. So it seems like a majority of the people watching think it's a disease. So I just want to kind of maybe take, I know we've already kind of started to do it, but maybe take some, if anybody has anything to say in the comments, I can throw it on the screen, a topic or some part of this that they want to talk about, we can throw it on and we can talk about it. So let me go through and see if I can find any that, what is this? I don't know. Maybe one of you guys, I don't know anything about Argentina and their drug issues, but someone's asking, is it true if Argentina, the percentage of addicts decreased from the legalization of all drugs? I mean, that to me, I feel like that would just, I don't know. I mean, is it the type of thing where if it's legal, it's not as exciting, you don't do it, like that type of lower the drinking age and they won't drink as much type of thing, or what? I don't know.
See, that's a slippery slope. It
absolutely is, and I don't know if I don't think we should ever.
I don't know that legality is necessarily a deterrent, because these behaviors are, socially deviant anyway, right? Like, I don't think many people are like, oh no, yeah, I was going to shoot heroin, but I thought twice because it's against the law. You know what I mean? That's usually not a consideration. And frankly, I mean, alcohol is legal, right? I think that maybe with the legalization, the reporting is less reliable because they're not paying as much attention to it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily support the war on drugs personally. I just think that it's a waste of government resources. But then again, I'm a little libertarian, so.
I mean, it is. I think it is a waste of time to a certain extent. I mean, I think that they spent way too much time on marijuana, for instance. Like, I thought the war on drugs for marijuana for such a long time was they spent way too much money on that. And I also think that anybody who says that marijuana is a gateway drug is an idiot.
I don't think that.
100% idiot.
I think the problem with marijuana is a lot of gangs profit off of it, and I think most of our marijuana in the South, at least, comes from Mexico. I mean, some of it is homegrown, but I mean, it's funding cartels.
Right, but you just hit the nail on the head right there. So if they would have legalized marijuana years ago, that would have stopped the cartels. That would have stopped funding the cartels right there at that point in time. And that takes half of their business away. So now you're going to have to go and look at the harder drugs. And it would have been probably a lot easier for them to basically, crack down on the harder drugs, on meth, on methamphetamines, on cocaine, on crack, on heroin, versus them spending so much time on, because let's be honest, there's only one thing that happens when you smoke pot. You get hungry and you eat. That's pretty much about it.
For some people, for other people, it fills a hole, and maybe at some point you can move on to other things. I don't think it's necessarily a gateway drug because I don't believe in a gateway drug.
No,
I believe that the gateway is something within yourself to begin with that does not exist externally. So it's not so much like, oh, I smoked a joint and now I'm an addict. It's the, I was looking for something to fill something that's empty within myself, or to mask something, or to fix something that I can't figure out how to, fix otherwise. And I mean, it could be pot, it could be alcohol, it could be heroin.
Yeah, I mean, AZ says it right here. Like, have you ever sucked dick for weed? No, you haven't. So,
boo this man.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just look at marijuana as a gateway drug just because it happens to be the first drug most people ever do.
And it seems to be the safest drug that most people can do. Because have you ever heard of anybody ever overdosing on weed? No, you haven't. So that's the reason why I think it might be what most people do, Brian. I agree 100% with you.
I have seen people have accidents on weed.
Yeah, actually, marijuana in combination is responsible for a pretty disproportionately high amount of emergency room visits every year, which is
Yeah, but you have to mix it with something. That's the thing.
Yeah,
If you just smoke pot, if you just like to smoke pot because you like to sit in your kitchen and stare at your refrigerator for 3 hours, that's fine. But listen, if any drug with anything else, with any other stimulant or or upper or downer, is going to cause a lot more hospital visits. I mean, that's with anything. It's
Yeah, and this comment here, alcohol is the gateway drug. If you were gonna call something a gateway drug, I would say alcohol can be more of a gateway drug than weed is, because I know a lot of people that have drug issues, they don't drink, not because they have an alcohol issue, but because they start drinking, they get drunk, and next thing you know, they get the bright idea to go pick up a bag of Coke or go pick up a bag of dope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because nobody goes to the hayfields when they're in high school to say, "All right, we're all going to go there and smoke pot." No, you all go there for a keg party.
That's why, in my opinion, the I'm just gonna not do drugs and still drink, or I'm just gonna smoke weed, or it might work for some people, but for a lot of people, I don't think that works, because you're just gonna drink and stay away from the drugs. You're gonna get drunk enough one night to go make that stupid decision and go back to what you were doing.
Well, that's if I can't really knock an overabundance of caution, but again, that's going back to treating this like some sort of uncurable, terrible, crippling disability that you carry for life. You're damaged. You were set up from birth this way, and there's just not a lot of evidence when you look at it objectively to support that. There just isn't. It's a symptom of an underlying problem. I can honestly say, admit you've been around. I was completely stone cold sober for 5 years. I now drink occasionally. I don't get drunk. I don't drive around drunk. I haven't tanked my life over anything. And I hear, especially some recent criticisms, "Oh my God, she relapsed." No, my reasons for drinking are night and day at this point, and I resolved a lot of the underlying issues that drove my problematic drinking. I don't have the desire to go out and get shit-cocked every night or blackout or anything like that. I can drink like a normal person. And I mean, if disaster is right around the corner from me, I've staved it off for 3 years now just fine. I'm not terribly concerned about it, but I have a lot more today than I did 8 years ago. A lot more. And I also have a lot more I don't want to say coping mechanisms, but there's just a lot more. My life is fuller today. I'm able to hit the reward system in my brain through so many different tasks that I don't have to revert to the default of just drinking.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, but I mean, I think that's just, and that's something that I learned again through the program of Smart Recovery, because it wasn't shoving down this idea that you are damaged. You are, your number one priority has to be to fight off the demon that is alcoholism for the rest of your life. And this is the biggest thing you'll ever do. Like I spent 5 years in this program, and yes, I didn't drink, but I also didn't have a lot of meaningful social relationships. My relationship was in shambles. I sometimes put AA above my children in a situation where I really should have been putting my children first. That's crazy. They were, living out of my care. But no, I had to make it to an alcothon. There were just a lot of things that the priority always became Alcoholics Anonymous, and this idea that if I didn't have this substitute program, that I was going to just fall to shambles, and my life was empty. It was just empty. And I mean, I think that actually put me at a higher risk of relapse than where I am today, honestly.
Well, they shove it down your throat that you have to go and that you have to put it above everything else, because if you don't, then your life will be over again.
You should never put one thing above everything else in your life, though. That's unbalanced. That's a recipe.
Exactly.
One thing should never become bigger than the totality of the quality of your life.
Because that's the reason why you got addicted to the drug you got addicted to in the first place, is because you put that above anything else, which...
And why? Because it was a task-based mission to hit the reward system in your brain, which you could do a million different ways that don't involve substances at all. The idea is not to just continue to carve out the same, paths in your brain. And your brain does have a phenomenon called neuroplasticity, which means that you can ingrain patterns and you can ingrain these behaviors, but you can also rework the connections and the synapses in your brain. You can absolutely change the behavior of your brain.
Yeah, and that's why I've heard a lot of good things about smart recovery. But a big thing for me at least, was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically learn, just to slow shit down in your head, and you don't have to, the sun doesn't come out, you don't have to go run to fucking get high, or, just shit like that. Slow it down, learn to think before you act and stuff like that. Kind of like you just said, Kate, kind of retraining the brain. I still don't drink. Maybe I could, I don't know, but it's something that's been working for me for a long time, to just do nothing. And, I'm not gonna go, obviously I'm not gonna go test that if something's working out, you know what I mean? That'd be stupid. And that's why, everyone's different. I think that's kind of why it's this big complex thing, and why it's such an argument whether it is a disease or whether it's a choice, is because it's not this one fix all for everybody. Every case is different. What works for me didn't work for you, Kate, and what works for me, you know what I'm saying? Like, what works for me might not work for Brian. But
every time I went to a meeting, when I was first getting clean, it made me leave wanting to use more than I went in. So I ended up not going to meetings because it didn't work for me, where some people need that like structure to go every day.
Yeah,
it just doesn't fit everyone. It's not one size fits all.
When you leave.
Go after Maddie. Let's let Brian chime in. He hasn't talked in a while. See if he's got anything to say. If not, that's cool. But
yeah, so like when you leave a meeting, some people feel like a complete shitbag. Like you feel like you're 10 times as worse than somebody else. And then, I want to say something about one of the comments in here. Howard says, AA didn't work for me. I have a problem with the higher power thing. A lot of people, when they talk about higher power, the first thing that they think of is God. That's the first thing that most people talk about with their higher power. But what people don't realize is your higher power can be anything that you want it to be. But you have to realize what your higher power is. Nobody can force the higher power down your throat. Nobody can force a Bible down your throat. Nobody can force anything upon you that you don't want. But you have to believe in something. If you're even going to be able to even think that AA or NA is going to be able to work for you. Because if you don't believe in something higher than yourself, it's not going to work. It's 100% not going to work. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels. But
that's true. But
I mean, yeah. What if you're secular? There's no recovery for secular people. I don't know about that. And I think that's, again, this idea that like you have to do things this way or you're not going to be a successful human being. It's just wrong.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is like a higher power could be staying clean. Like
that could be anything.
Clean could be your higher power. That's what I'm saying. You have to, you have to have something to believe in order for you to be able to, feel that you're going to be able to get and or stay clean. So I'm not saying believe in God or, believe in, some Buddhist monk or whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you have to be able to believe in something. And even if it's yourself, even if your higher power is yourself, believe in yourself that you can do what you say that you're going to be able to do in order to get clean. But you have to be able to believe in something. And if your higher power is yourself, then so be it.
I think the biggest
your kids or whatever, All right, go ahead, Brian.
I think the biggest issue I ever had with like AA meetings and all that, especially early in recovery, is they make it seem like that's the cut and dry only way you're ever gonna stay clean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just flat out bullshit. Like at the end of the day, you're gonna stay clean if you want to stay clean. You're gonna relapse if you want to relapse. There's no in between. I don't need to surround myself with a bunch of other people who used to get high or used to get drunk, whatever, and sit there and tell war stories for an hour to keep myself clean. Like that seems silly to me.
I went to some like outpatients and counselors who basically told me if I didn't start going to meetings all the time, I would relapse. Like basically telling me I was going to fail because I didn't like it.
That's my wife currently. She's going through children's services, and we just met with them not last week, but the week prior. And they asked her, they're like, are you going to any meetings? And she tried to explain to them, like, look, I'm super early in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be around other people who may not be as committed to recovery as I am and sit around and tell stories for an hour about the shit we used to do when we were fucked up.
Trying to one-up each other on who did the worst stuff.
Right.
That's
and they sat there and told her, They sat
You
there and
guys-
told her, like, you have to go to these meetings. We need stamps to show that you were there, just somebody to verify you're making progress. Like, meetings aren't a make or break in recovery. It's just an added benefit if you take something from it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Brian, so like what works for you? Like, what are you doing today to stay clean?
I mean, I've got quite a few years distanced from that, but you know, early in recovery, I started finding like new hobbies, like shit that I enjoy doing. I found out that I like to read. Like, I didn't know I liked to read before, but I enjoy reading. I like to do wood burning. Whenever I'm like super stressed out, I'll go to the batting cages. You know, I'll throw on a Bruins hockey game or something. Just anything to take my mind away in that moment from fuck it, let's get high.
So when you say
then-
wood burning, do you mean like fires, or do you actually like burn wood to be able to put like patterns and stuff in them? Because that's badass. That wood burning.
Well,
stuff
what
is
I do,
badass.
like, I'll sand down a piece of wood and I got like this little pen kind of thing.
Yep.
And the tip of it gets super hot, and then I'll draw whatever it is on wood, and then I'll just turn on the wood burner and take the tip and just trace over it, and it burns it into the wood.
Oh shit. Oh
It
shit.
takes forever, but it requires me to concentrate on nothing but that. So,
Do you guys think AA is kind of like a cult? Like
I don't know.
It
the
can be.
brainwashing
It
part?
can be.
And
It
that- you
definitely
gotta,
can be.
you also, the thing with AA is you gotta find the right meeting.
Yep.
Because there is some cult like shitty meetings, you know, and I personally I can't knock AA. It was a big part of what helped me. That and the CBT. And like Brian just said, finding hobbies, getting rid of the bad people I was hanging out with, you know, not going back to the same people, changing my phone number. I had to drop everything and start clean and start fresh. And you know, it took multiple times, and I had, you know, once everything was changed and I switched everything out I had to switch and stop trying to just do this and just do that and half-ass and actually put my full effort that I would go into to go out and get high. That same effort, you know, it worked. It ended up working out well.
Exactly, because you put. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say you just put so much effort when you're using into trying to get whatever, but people don't try to, in the beginning, you don't put that same effort into it, trying to get clean. And you just want it to be like everyone to trust you right away and everything to be better.
Yeah. And I'm sure some people, like I've already seen one comment, which I honestly, I really don't care, but I've already seen one comment of someone saying like, oh, interesting that you're clean or whatever. But you know what, there's what I do to stay clean, and I don't have this vendetta that other people that we cover do, that I go out and the way I channel what I've done in the past, it's all my fault. I'm not going out with a camera and trying to, and this is kind of a little bit off subject, but I just wanted to say this one thing. This is, you know, I'm not going out with a camera trying to get back the people that, you know, the police and all that, like, oh, like it was their fault. No, it was my fault. I did it. And, you know, I've moved on from that. I don't judge anybody that's still struggling. Like, I've been there. That's been me. And I will never, ever judge anyone like that. And I don't judge. And if anyone ever wanted help, reach out and I would be the first to help you. But
the only time I had a problem with the police is when I was doing illegal things.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know
it's funny how that works.
You know what the amazing
Yeah.
thing is? You know what the amazing thing is once you stop living that lifestyle and move on, for the most part, they leave you alone. You know, I haven't gotten pulled over by the police in years, you know, and it's amazing how that all stops when you start following the law and doing the right thing. But
and you know what's crazy too is the fact that, you know, I was just thinking about this is, you know, my thing is I love music. I've loved music ever since I was a little kid. I mean, you know, now I love the gym. So now I have the gym and I have music. And the song "Not Afraid" by Eminem basically.
Oh no!
It
dude, that song got me through. got me
That
through
song, I'm telling you, in
Yeah,
four
man.
4 minutes, it basically tells you everything that you need
Yeah.
to know about
Yeah.
being addicted to something and coming off of it, and getting past your demons, your inner demons, and whatever you have to do, and coming out being a better person on the other side.
Maddie, I can't tell you how many miles I have walked with that song on repeat.
Yep.
In the beginning.
Yep. When I go to the gym, that's the first song
Yep.
that I listen to every single time I go into the gym. That's the first song that plays on my phone.
Yeah, man. that whole album, really.
Yeah.
I won't eat.
Uh-oh.
Okay, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you didn't pay your Cricket Wireless
I'm
bill.
not going to share my.
You were doing good there for a while. There you go.
I'm on my laptop. I said I won't even share my whole gym playlist, but there's a lot of Slayer on there.
Yeah, how's the gym going for you, Kate? Well, you can't go right
Shut
now,
up.
right? Well, you can't go right now. You lucked
No,
out.
I can't
You lucked out.
Well, I'll tell you what. If there's a lot of Slayer on there, Brett would be proud. Brett would be very proud.
Slayer.
Do you guys think some people need that like cult lifestyle? Like
I
the
think so.
brainwashing.
Yeah, it works for
definitely.
some people.
I think
some people
especially-
just need the structure of shit
I
more
think
than
especially
they need
if
a
they
cult.
don't have like that support at home or people, friends or family who support them, you need someone to talk to and someone to like help you through. I think is what is most helpful with it, as long as you go to the right people, because you can always find the people who don't want to be clean and are just there to shoot the shit or do whatever they're doing.
But even still, like, I don't surround myself with people that just kiss my ass or be like, yeah, bro, that would be such a great idea. Like, I surround myself now with people who are going to challenge me if I'm fucking up. People who are going to call me out if they
Yes.
see me do something stupid. I need that accountability.
Yep.
Tough love was a big thing for me too. Someone that wasn't afraid to tell me, hey, shithead, you're fucking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's my wife gets pissed at me all the time, but like, I'll sit there and be like, don't fucking lie to me. Just be honest with me. We can work through this shit. But if I feel like you're lying again, you're right back into like junkie type behavior.
Yep.
I don't want to be around it.
Yeah. So that I saw that question actually in the comments a few minutes ago about it's one thing to stay clean, but when you still got the addictive behaviors, and that's a kind of a big thing too, is people go around and claim being clean, but they'll still have the addictive behaviors going on, still getting into bad shit, and that's another thing that I notice sometimes happens as well.
Yeah. And the thing that
go ahead, Maddie.
The thing that happens too a lot with people is I kind of take, being an addict and coming back from being an addict to, to cleaning your room. It's easy to mess up your room and it's easy to become an addict. And it takes twice as long to come back and recover, just like it takes twice as long for people to have a different thought process about you. That's the reason why I like the saying, the comeback is greater than the setback. Because of the fact that when you come back out on the other side of this, you're a better person because you've beaten what most people don't beat. And you're a better person because of the fact that you've done something in your life that not many people have ever been able to do. It's, you've seen yourself and you've let everybody see you on your absolute worst day. And now they get to see you, on all, on every single better day that you have, going forward. And I give people who are in recovery are a lot better person than I am. And I, not that I've, never been addicted to anything. The people who have come out on the other end are a lot better of a person than I am, just because of the fact that they've been to the depths of hell. They've been to their absolute lowest point in their life. And to see them pick themselves up out of that hole and be a productive member of society, you have to give your hats off to people like that, because, not many people come out of that hole ever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I personally never used the "oh, poor me, I have a disease" excuse, because a lot of people use that as an excuse. I do know that I don't regret where I've been, but I also know that I was 100% on autopilot for a long time, kind of just just doing it and, lost sight of a lot of things for a long time. And I don't know, it took getting to that depths of hell, like you just said, to realize, like, this moment right here is the moment that I either need to find a new path to get myself better, or it's only going to get worse, and that's, like I said, I never use that as an excuse as a disease. I don't know if I would call it a disease. I don't know what to call it. I do know that I made the choice the first time to do it, and I do know that I was on autopilot for a long time, and I had to snap out of it, and I would go back and forth, and finally, I don't know, I just did things this time, and here I am, but I don't know. But one thing here, Nacho Victory just said, so when you trade a negative addiction for a positive addiction, this doesn't mean that they are cured. I mean,
I don't see, again, cure goes back to this disease thing. I mean, cured, you have improved your circumstances. You have, built healthier neural paths. Cured, I don't know. I can't believe it's a disease,
I don't think I'm cured of
cured.
anything, because I stopped putting poison in my body. Like, I don't think I'm cured because, or deserve a medal because I stopped doing something
exactly
that I shouldn't have been doing to begin with.
You tightened up your belt and you came. You're like David Carradine.
But I mean, is it ever cured? I don't even think cured is a word really that should be involved with addiction.
And also,
I know if I was to start right back up now, I'd be right back where I was the day I stopped.
Yep.
Real quick. Yeah, real fucking quick.
I honestly, sorry, you go.
No, I also
sorry. You go,
Karen. Listen, go before you have to speak to my
Karen,
manager.
go ahead.
I'm not going to talk now.
Karen, go ahead.
Karen.
No, I don't want to talk now.
Oh, okay. Jesus Christ, Kate.
That's my fault. I know. Listen, I'm still a terrible person. No, but I think that also the whole cured thing, like, progress is not a linear. It's not a linear thing. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any point in your life, whether you're addicted to substances or you have other personal problems or whatever it is, to where you're like, well, I'm 100% where I need to be and this is great. Like, there's always going to be some sort of issue or setback, and I mean, it's change. It's not a cure, it's change, it's growth.
Yeah, it's progress, not perfection. It's nobody's perfect.
My God, get your jargon the fuck out of here. I'm just kidding. I really don't. I don't like AA. I mean, I don't even get me started. We're down to like 20 viewers anyway, but like, don't even get me started on the industrial complex. I think AA is, because it's pretty weird that there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, but you've got Bible thumping AA, and the courts send you there if you get a DUI. What the fuck is up with that?
Mm-hmm.
See,
yeah,
that's not going to work.
Our Father.
Yeah, I mean, the whole sending you there and forcing people to do things, that doesn't work.
I forgot what country it is, but they have a prison system, and during their prison system, they make every inmate do the 12 steps, but like it's not in relation to drugs, just as being a bad person. I guess they apply it that way.
Well, the 12 steps can be basically applied to anything when you really sit down and think about it. 12 steps. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have 12-step programs for people who overeat. They have 12-step programs for people who are addicted to food. They have 12-step programs for a myriad of things. So I mean, even if you just want to go through the 12 steps yourself to try to be a better human being every single day, pick up the book, read the book, understand the book. It's like picking up the Bible, if you will, or picking up any book, picking up the book Life for Dummies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sorry, now that I'm looking over comments, like this, like that has like been spitting out some fire questions. But what do you guys think about
so here's
this?
another one.
Yeah.
So
one.
I've always, I mean, I can't, so like this, like that is asking, what do you think about the rap industry promoting glamorizing drug use? I personally, I don't know if I was ever swayed by that, but I, like, now that I am, and now that I am clean, I listen to rap music that has that. Like Lil Wayne, for instance, is one.
Oh,
like,
that's the biggest one of them all.
Macklemore has a good line about Lil Wayne's song, saying that like he's an alien and like he wished that he could be like that, but he would just sit back and play PlayStation or something like that. But kind of like that's kind of a good thing because like a good way to put it, because like they do talk about like drug use and using lean and all that like a lot, and it's not as glamorous as they
glamorize drug dealing, which I think is even worse, like preying upon people who are hurting and in a lot of pain and just using them to make money and not pay taxes and all that.
Well, first of all, let's talk because of the fact that there is no rap industry nowadays. All that stuff and all that music is trash.
Yeah.
Absolute
Garbage.
Hot fire.
A mumble rap.
Garbage.
Well, have you
yeah,
ever heard Immortal Technique?
Oh, hell
Dance
yeah.
with the
I
Devil?
love Immortal
Hell
I
Technique.
mean, like that's quality rap music. I mean, that's got a message. It talks about drugs, but it doesn't glamorize it. It tells you a real story. Well, like a story that could be real. I don't know if it's real or not. But I mean, like that's good music. But like this Love Sosa and all this other stuff that's been coming out, I mean, I don't get it. Like,
I
what does
think
that mean?
I think it's a sort of a symptom to like society's illness overall, because I think that we tend to go towards legal ramifications and explanations to addiction and a biological component because it's comfortable. It doesn't make us reassess our priorities and our social structure, right? But I mean, overall, pop culture in general, it's not just drugs. It's any sort of instant gratification. We are constantly pushing instant gratification and then turning around and looking bewildered about like, why do we have these problems? Why is there an opiate epidemic, right? Well, I mean, we're on electronic devices 99% of our lives. Every time that you get a like on your Facebook status or get a comment from somebody, you get another dopamine rush, though, right? We're constantly on electronics. We go out to the bar and we go drinking. We're pushed to make a lot of just constant instant gratification. It is absolutely sewn into the fabric of our society. So of course we have problems like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean we're all kind of trapped to our houses a little bit right here. Not completely, but we're kind of all trapped
Speak for
to
yourself.
our houses.
We're trapped to our houses.
Yeah. All right. So call it that then. But imagine how different it would be if we did not have our electronics right now. If we didn't have the internet, people would be going nuts. People will be going nuts.
Well, the world would be a lot better of a place too, though.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Molly's mom has a kind of a point that I know we kind of talked about a little bit, but I definitely want to bring it up because in my opinion, I think it's a huge aspect of addiction. Is hey Beanie says I agree a lot of addicts suffer from mental health issues. Apparently Beanie said it too, but I think mental health is a huge part of addiction.
Most addicts that I've met, and myself also, have some mental health issues. Like I have really bad anxiety and depression, and a lot of, and I think the drugs itself was like a self-medication of that because I didn't have anxiety when I was originally using. So it's kind of more of a, not a symptom, but like a self-medication and not necessarily the original problem. Just kind of like a Band-Aid on a open wound, an infected wound that you just slap a Band-Aid on and call it a day. Just going to fester and get worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think you use to not feel things and kind of escape out of your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound almost. You don't want to go to the doctor to hear the real life, what you have. So you're going to take, matters in your own hands and try to, mask what, self-medicate and not want to, hear the realness of it. Like Mitch was saying a little bit earlier, the accountability for it all,
Yeah. Kate, this is the second time Beanie said this, so I want to bring it up and see what you think about it. Beanie says, "I believe addiction is a thinking disorder."
Yeah, no, that's essentially, I guess, the simplest way to put my viewpoint on it into one sentence. Beanie was quite succinct with that. It is. It's it's a cognitive disorder.
Wouldn't
You know,
that make it a disease?
I'm not really picking. I'm not picking on Beanie at all, but I think Snapchat filters are a disorder too.
Beanie is beautiful. I like her. No, I do like Beanie, but no, I mean,
Beanie's
it doesn't
cool.
make
Beanie's
it a
cool.
disease. No. Do you have what does OCD stand for? Is it obsessive compulsive disease or
disorder.
obsessive compulsive disorder? Right. Disorders and diseases do have a distinction.
Yeah.
Again, a disease, it comes with some connotation to it, I think, just in the syntax that can be kind of counterproductive, in that you look at a disease and you look at yourself as somehow damaged or defective inherently. And that's simply like, there's not a lot of evidence to back that up when you look at it objectively. You're doing things that most people would do. Would most people stick a needle in their arm and do heroin? No, but it's one avenue to the same end that we're all trying to meet, which is essentially, hitting the reward center in your brain. We do a billion things every day to accomplish that. Some people, are dealt a better hand than others with having healthier avenues to do so. But and again, just because you do resort to substances at some point in your life to do that doesn't mean that there isn't any hope, or that it's incurable, or that you're somehow condemned to this forever. You can change. You can absolutely rewire your own brain with work.
I agree with that, but playing devil's advocate, I mean, on the same note, the definition would fit, alcoholism or any addiction.
Which definition? Disease?
Just addiction, disease. I mean, a condition is the standard that it sets, is a condition of a living animal or plant or of one of its parts that impairs normal functioning, and it goes on. But I mean, so it's a condition would be a disorder. We could classify disorder as a condition. I think that sounds right. So by definition, I think it would be considered a disease. But do I fundamentally agree with that? No. Do I think there's anything to back it up? No. But I think the definition says it is. I don't think I really agree with it, but that's what it technically, it's a disease.
Brian, I saw on YouTube, you had a kind of an interesting answer to, someone had told you, what was it? They were talking about emphysema, and people with cancer don't choose to do that. I forget what that was, but do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was a guy that I had talked to earlier, and he had taken the stance that it was a choice, and I had taken the stance that, I feel it's a disease. And he kind of explained his side, and then I went into a little more thorough explanation of why I feel that, it's a disease. And when I was talking to him, I forget how the emphysema thing came up. I think I was just listing random diseases off the top of my head. But it was just a lot of the terms are used in addiction are the same terms used for diseases, whether it be cancer, emphysema, whatever. And there's just so many comparisons that are the same within, disease or addiction. And I think that's kind of where we went. I'd have to pull it up. I'm not sure how. But...
No, I just thought, I was reading that earlier. I thought it was pretty interesting. But let me see.
Hey guys, just so you know, I'm charging my phone, but I'm on 1% for some reason, so it's using more power than it's getting. So if I just dip off all of a sudden, then that's why.
All right. I'm gonna post the link for if anyone wants. Is anyone interested in coming in and talking for a few minutes? We got a few more minutes left, but I'll post the link if anybody else wants to come in and chat for a few on this stuff.
But it has to be about addiction. Can't be
about We're gonna stick to just that.
We're not gonna talk about COVID-19.
Yeah, there's enough of that.
Yeah.
Another point that I didn't bring up was women look in the mirror and they may see themselves as fat, but they're actually skinny. So they've got an anorexia disorder.
Body dysmorphia.
Yeah. Body dysmorphia. And then, a man may look in the mirror and think that he's a woman. you know, are these diseases as well, or
You look like you're sitting in a toaster oven. I am. I'm trying to get a tan here going on.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I distracted everybody.
My easy bake.
Oak, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
He's asking.
I was saying,
Oh, sorry.
Kate, if you can answer them, then go ahead.
I mean, again, like, they're disorders. I mean, I guess that it's difficult with the word disease because it's taken on a context in just everyday language that is open to some more interpretation, I guess. So I mean, is anorexia a disease? I would say it's a disorder, but I guess that you could use the terms interchangeably and get away with that. Yeah, I'll concede. I'll concede that.
so why not addiction?
I mean, I suppose you could use it interchangeably. I don't even know if the word is what bothers me so much as the attitude behind it.
Yeah, I can
But
agree
what
with
about
that.
addictions that aren't drugs, like food addiction or gambling or all that stuff? Would you consider that a disease as well?
I guess you have to.
Well, hold on a second. Well, so what about lying? Is lying a disease?
Yeah, that's interesting because it takes out.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really addicted to lying, though. They're just a full of
Some
shit
people are
person
addicted
overall.
to lying.
There are
Well,
people
some
who
people
are
are like,
pathological.
Listen,
Abrams a perfect example of that shit, but
yeah, slide up into a girl's DMs. You'll find out real quick how many men lie about their penis size. Let's just be honest. So,
Is that a disease?
that's a disease. Yeah.
I mean, you do drugs and get addicted. You smoke cigarettes and get cancer, disease. Well, no, because cancer, you can't 12-step your way out of cancer.
no, but you can
try really
seek
hard.
treatment for cancer, and you can seek treatment for addiction. You can undergo chemo treatment if you have cancer. You can undergo, whatever various treatments for various diseases.
But I think there's a more standard treatment for things like cancer than, say, addiction.
Yeah.
But there's also studies that show that you have genes in your body when you're born where you're more susceptible to get cancer versus addiction to drugs or whatever the case may be. So I mean that's where that science has proven that some people are born with genes that cause cancer. They have a family history of cancer versus there's no gene that they say that has a family history of addiction. So it's that's where.
And you can get cancer without smoking, and you can smoke for 60 years and never get cancer. So
right, well, right. That's right. That's why I'm saying that's the reason. That's where it's such a slippery slope. Where you have people on one side of the aisle saying one thing, people on the other side of the aisle saying something different. So that's that's the reason why there's such a big controversy about addiction versus disease, or choice versus disease. So it's
again the label. I mean, call it what you want. I just honestly think that prescribing these very strict expectations for what is supposed to cure, quote unquote, cure addiction, and some of the resounding stigma behind it, which I think in some way is worse than just assuming that it's a moral failing. You know what I mean? Because you can come out of a moral failing. If you have cancer, you have cancer. Like you can't make decisions and get your way out of that one. I think in some ways labeling it as disease is just extremely self-defeating. It doesn't mean that I think that please nobody go out after this and pick up a needle and shoot up heroin or anything. I think that would be ill-advised. I'm not saying you can beat it like that. I don't think that looking at yourself as defective and diseased is particularly empowering.
Well, it just kind of sets you up for failure because you're like, oh, I have a disease. I'm never, I don't know, broken. So I'm not going to change because that's just who I am. Like, that's the way I used to look at it when I was told I had a disease before I don't know, did more research and changed my stance on that.
So do you think that medical professionals are so quick to call it a disease because it allows for more funding into the whole thing?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pockets fat.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the main reason this whole thing is called a disease, which I don't disagree that that's not a that's I think that's a good thing, because
It's
what
greed. It's corporate greed.
I
is
don't
what-
necessarily think it's greed, but if people are more willing
if it
to
gets
help
people more help, yeah,
people are more willing to help people if you think that it's a disease, as opposed to if you think it's a moral feeling and they're just a bad person and deserve to be on the street and dying or whatever. If it says, oh, it's a disease, you can do this or that, people are more willing to help someone,
yeah,
as opposed to if they're just a bad person.
I disagree with that only because I think once you tell somebody like you're an addict, their opinion is formed.
Oh,
It doesn't matter what
agree.
label the government puts on it.
I
It's
agree.
instantly either you're a junkie or all right, you're somebody, going through a rough patch, but you can get better.
yeah.
So I
think
don't
it's
think the
like
label on it matters.
If you're just
Oak's phone just
sorry.
died. He just
Yeah.
bounced.
if you're just meet someone, like you start high and have to like mess up your way down, but if someone knows you're an addict, you start at the bottom and like have to prove yourself a
Yeah.
good person, as opposed to everyone else.
Yeah, yeah. So here's another $1 million question by like this, like that. Narcan. Should tax dollars pay for Narcan?
Yeah.
I mean,
as somebody who has had to administer Narcan on my wife, I'm glad that taxpayer dollars did cover it. But yeah, God, man,
I mean,
that's
it's tough.
tricky.
It's a tough question. I mean, I think it is a good thing to, it's good. It saves lives, and sometimes we make sacrifices. I mean, I don't have coronavirus right now, but I'm sitting at my house to prevent everybody. I mean, I'm not saying the two are anything alike, but it's that same type of mentality, I guess, where if it's something that's going to help these people from dying, yeah, it's kind of tough for that argument to have that argument when people are getting Narcan, standing up, walking away, and going and getting another bag of drugs.
All right, well,
Again,
that's the same thing with insulin. You know
yeah.
what I mean, it's
Yeah, sound guy just hopped in. What's up, sound guy?
What up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I personally, I don't mind part of my tax dollars going to Narcan. I mean, not everyone takes it serious, but it is what it is, I guess. For the people that do, I guess it's worth it. But
well, it's
I
worth
think if
because
it
in the end,
helps save American lives,
it saves a life.
All right,
That's
cool.
the
Yeah.
problem.
yeah,
The only
there's
thing
no
is
value you can place on that.
right. There's no right. You can't put a value on somebody's life. But the problem is that when you see, I mean, obviously, the normal human doesn't see the people who constantly abuse the fact that they keep getting hit with Narcan after Narcan after Narcan. The only people who would normally see it are, people in the healthcare industry, firefighters, police officers, EMTs, people who are out, in the trenches, knee deep, in the shit that they're dealing with every day. So, I mean, there are some, I have some friends who are EMTs, some friends who are cops who see the same people over and over again.
I can totally understand that a guy's gonna get frustrated when he goes in Narcan the guy once a week or a couple times a week. I can totally see the frustration in that.
But in the same aspect, a human life is a human life, regardless. Correct. And everybody's got a story, and you don't know their backstory. Yeah. So you have to treat everybody equally. That's a human side of it.
If not for that individual person, for that person's mother or that person's kid or whatever that's going to have to attend that person's funeral, he may not appreciate it. He may go use 10 minutes later, but that person has a parent. That person has a kid. And if it saves them grief, then
is it fair that like say at my work, my job mostly is trying to get people's injectable medications that they really need covered, and sometimes insurance says it's covered and it still would cost $5,000 every time they need it. So is it fair that someone whose purpose obviously it's why is that free, but then
no, it isn't fair. It isn't fair, but at the same time, I don't think we should stop
Oh no, I don't think you should
letting
take
not. I
it
mean,
away.
obviously there
Yeah.
needs to be some reform in the whole EpiPen thing and the
Right.
whole other. I mean,
I think
reform that. Don't
insurance
take
in
away
general
from
needs to
something
be
that is.
But that's why I say it all comes down to that corporate greed. It all comes down to that pharmaceutical company putting money in their pocket. And the reason why I say that is I have a kid who has a forever illness. My son, basically, for the lack of a better term, has the boy in the bubble syndrome. My son's body does not produce an immune system. I once a week have to administer medicine to my son where I have to stick 4 needles in his stomach and watch this kid go through agonizing pain for 4 hours to give him blood plasma, to be able to give him an immune system for 1 week to be able to help him fight off the common cold that could potentially kill him. So at the end of the year, me and my ex-wife get a bill for what is our portion to pay, which is $10,000 at the end of the year, which is what I have to pay in order to keep my son alive. So what's it worth to somebody else? You know what I mean? So it's not like, my son has, he doesn't have a choice. If I don't give him this medicine, he dies, versus somebody else is born with it and, their body produces this, on its own. So, for me with the whole health industry, it's, I have a huge bone to pick with them because, what makes it okay for me to have to pay $10,000 a year to have to keep my kid alive versus somebody else who's going out and purposely using something that they know could potentially kill them. So for me, that's the reason why it's such a slippery slope for me. And like I said, my son's life is no more important than anybody else's life on this panel, is no more important than, than anybody who goes out and who uses drugs. So that's the reason why for me, there's such a slippery slope.
I just think our insurance in this country needs to be completely overhauled. Like, say my grandmother worked her whole entire life paying into taxes, and her prescriptions were hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but I was on Mass Health because I didn't have a job, and I was perfectly able to work, but I just didn't, and all my medications were like $2. And how is that fair?
No, it's not. It's not fair at all. But that's the reason why I'm a huge proponent of, you've paid your whole entire life into a system that you probably have paid more money into than you would have ever have gone to the doctor. Because let's all be honest. Nobody goes to the doctor when they're sick. At least I don't. I wait till I have a laundry list of things that's wrong with me. I don't go there for a hangnail or for an ingrown toenail or because
I have a $6,000 deductible. I won't go to the hospital unless I'm dying.
Right. I literally have a laundry list of things that I go for, and I probably go. I go for all my preventative stuff. I mean, I go for the flu shot, which I have to get 4 times a year because of my son's immune deficiency. But I go there for my for my yearly physical. And unless I'm bleeding out of some orifice or unless I have some broken bone, I normally don't go. So I'm going to be paying way more money into the healthcare system than I'll ever get back. So why can't you take the money that I'm paying in and use it to pay for somebody who's retired, who doesn't have that ability to be able to pay for that, somebody who's skipping out on their diabetes medicine or on their high blood pressure medicine or whatever the case may be, just because of the fact that they can't afford it. That's not right.
No.
That's basically like you.
I think if we're gonna sit here and get into all the failings of the U.S. health system, I think we're gonna need a much longer show.
Yeah.
I gotta jump out anyway. I'm gonna get my spot if somebody else wants to jump in because I am freaking tired and I gotta work. So night, guys.
Okay. All
right. I'll put the link in the comments.
Yeah, I just did too. So all right. So I'm gonna bring in. Looks like. Clancy, if she's ready. Clancy, I haven't heard from her in a while. Hi, Clancy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Just Clancy, you're sideways.
You're sideways. That's not good. I haven't quite figured this out. You can see just the top of my head.
You don't need healthcare, Clancy. You need a V8.
Yeah, really.
I accidentally put my camera on earlier and ducked so fast.
So it doesn't matter. I'm sitting in the dark anyway.
Yeah. So what's going on, Clancy? We're talking about addiction.
Listen, I've been here the whole time. I'm Liza. So I've been sitting out there the whole time. It's kind of an interesting topic for me because I've worked in the mental health field and I've worked in the medical field for a long, long time. And it's really hard for me when I hear opinions from both sides. Is it an addiction? Is it a disease? And I see people on the streets who are having difficulties, and sometimes it's easy to say, knock it off, And when I work inside mental health facilities and I see people receive treatment and I see them get out and go out the door, and I see a lot of people who succeed and I see some that don't. So I honestly don't know. Is it a disease, or is it an addiction, or is it just people sometimes think, well, I feel much better now than when I'm high, and I kind of like this, so I'm going to stay this way for a while. And, and I know you were just talking about the healthcare system, and that's a whole nother ball game. That I could go on for 3 hours. So there, I see the addiction in terms of drugs, but I see addictions in terms of a lot of other things. And it's that I think is behavior. I don't think that's a disease. I mean, I at one point really, and don't laugh, had an addiction to buying fabric. When we sold our house and moved, my husband was taking boxes and moving them to a location in the house so that he could just get them on the truck. And at one point he said to me, why are you bringing these boxes back upstairs? He says, I've carried down like 27, 30 boxes marked fabric. He says, I've carried this box marked fabric downstairs like 27, 30 times, and you keep bringing it back upstairs. And I said, no, honey, that's how many boxes I have.
All right, hey Clancy, I just want to jump in real quick. I gotta jump off too, guys. I gotta be at work.
Yeah, I'm ending. Yeah, I'm gonna end this in a few minutes anyway. But yeah, Clancy, like I mean, that just goes back to, it doesn't matter what it is the person's addicted to. It can be.
But hold on a second. Can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
But despite, outside of the fact that you annoyed your husband by the number of boxes he had to carry, and I'm not trying to be flippant when I say that, but outside, did it actually cause you any negative circumstance or consequence in your life other than clutter?
Money.
But to the point where you spending money that you should have been spending elsewhere on groceries, on bills, etc.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to make something.
Okay.
And I probably never got around to making it.
Okay. See, because I think that's one of the.
Let me finish. I actually took trips to New York to buy fabric.
Okay. See, I think that's one of the things that I saw, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to jump on tonight. It's because I saw it a lot in the comments where people were. I don't know if people were being serious or poking fun, but they were talking about things like addiction to like chocolate or to shopping or And I get we use that word addiction a lot in kind of common, it's become kind of common nomenclature to call everything an addiction. But I think what people need to realize is that, addiction, maybe this isn't the textbook definition, but for me, addiction is when you continue to do when you continue to engage in a behavior despite the presence of negative consequences, either for yourself or for the people who are around you and close to you. So, harmless addictions like, oh yeah, I'm addicted to donuts. I mean, unless you're talking about somebody who's morbidly obese or diabetic. But my point is, we use the word addiction in general far too much because we need to talk about addictions that cause a negative consequence. So being addicted to the gym, being addicted to working out isn't an addiction.
Or something that brings someone's life to a point where it's unmanageable. So, I mean, you can't really, it's more like you don't really want to compare. Like, obviously a heroin addiction is going to be a little bit more intense maybe than, or lack of the right word, but intense, I guess, than a fabric addiction.
I would compare this to gambling because what I was doing was I was spending money. I would go out and say, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee. I'd go to the fabric store, spend $300, come home and hide it. And I would literally, I had a Center Colonial, and I'd walk in the front door and he would be on the right side of the house behind French doors, and I would open the left French doors in the dining room and throw it in there, so he never even saw it.
I mean, if you're hiding things and stuff like
Right.
that, then I
Right.
would definitely, you can't belittle someone's. And I'm not saying you did, sound guy, but I'm just saying like everybody's level of what was unmanageable for them, like that's different. Like maybe one guy with a heroin addiction was out robbing convenience stores. That's obviously at some point that guy's life is going to be unmanageable, and he has an addiction to heroin. If you're driving to New York and getting fabric and hiding it from your husband and spending money that you shouldn't, and this whole time you know that you shouldn't be doing it, but you're still doing it, and you're doing it over and over again, that's the insanity starts setting in, and then that's a legitimate addiction.
I think that definitely qualifies.
Yeah. And
I'll agree overall that the term addiction has become too much of like a blanket term for a lot of things. But if you're doing something that's to the detriment of your own well-being, your family structure, or whatever, then I'd say it's an addiction.
Yeah. And the only way really that I could stop, I had to stop cold turkey because we downsized. I didn't have room for things, and I just had to give it away to people that needed it, to organizations that were going to make things for charity. And I sort of Marie Kondoed it. I gave almost everything away. I kept a couple of things that he had given me. Like here, it's your birthday. I bought you this fabric so you could make yourself a nice suit. So the things that gave me joy, like Marie Kondo does, kept a couple of things. And then the only thing that I have in the house now is fabric that I bought when I went to Europe. So there's maybe 3 or 4 pieces in the house. Because we really downsized. I mean, I'm in a small apartment now, so there is no place to put it.
Yeah. Now, are you able to still, make things and sew and all that without going all out?
Well, yeah, because I used to be a dress designer.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I knew that about you. Okay.
Right. So when I make something, I have a purpose. Now I have a couple of things on dress forms, and when they're done, the whole purpose is to sell them.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not like they're sitting around for me. I mean, the whole thing is to take really good pictures of them, put them on a model, and make money. So that's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So hopefully that'll work, because I had a sick cat 2 weeks ago, and I spent $6,000 on vet bills. So I need the money.
Yeah. All right. Well, I could go all night with this, but because I'm a night owl, so
I am too.
It's getting to be midnight now, and it is a Tuesday night.
Oh, it's past my bedtime.
Yeah. So Karen, as always, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Hey, Brian, I just want to say real quick, congratulations on 8 years clean, man. That's a huge
Yeah,
accomplishment.
congratulations.
Appreciate it,
Brian,
I guess.
yeah, man. It was good having you on. Any other time you want to come on, just hit us up. All right, man.
5 years. Do I get a cookie?
Clancy? Yeah, of course. Everyone gets a cookie.
I want a cookie.
Medal
come
trophies for
Hey,
everyone.
real quick, like this, like that. Yes, a gaming addiction for kids can be a concern for sure.
Yeah, sound guy. I just saw that comment too, and I almost put it up, and I'm like, that's like another 20-minute conversation.
Yeah, no. We'll
do another one of these
at another point.
There's not a lot of people watching right now, but that's all right. I had a good time. I enjoyed the conversation. At the end of the day, it's really not about how many people are watching. We had people engaged in the conversation that did enjoy it, and there was people watching in the comments that those of you that did. So we'll do it again, definitely.
Hey, if any of you get out to Instagram, you can see some of my old stuff. I took pictures. It's under JOSC111.
All right. Cool.
You can look at my stuff.
There you go. All right.
All right.
Well, Clancy, thank you for coming on. Thank you, Karen, sound guy, Kate, Maddie Mo, Officer Oak. Thank you, everybody.
Brian.
All right, take care.
All right.
Appreciate you having me, man.
All right. Everybody have a good night.
Toodles.
All right.